Dell is updating the XPS 139360 with the 8th generation Intel Core processor. Today, I'll tell you if it's worth it. Stay tuned. All right, so before we jump into the new processor, let's talk a little bit about the XPS 13. Now, nothing has literally changed from early this year. You're still getting the Infinity Edge display, which is a IGZO made by Sharp, one of the best out there, really nice. This is the Quad HD version, so it is full touch, and that is still available. There is also the matte full HD version, which I enjoy a lot myself. It is better for long-term reading. You also get better battery life, but I'll tell you why that may not matter with this 8th generation chip in a few minutes. Other than that, you still get the weird camera down here at the bottom, so a lot of people still don't like that. I'm mixed on it. If you don't use a web camera very often, I don't consider it a big deal. If, however, you rely on it daily or use Skype often, well, you may want to look elsewhere or consider getting an external camera. There's just only so much you can do with that display. It's still a bit unfortunate, but it is down there and still gives you the weird angle. Nothing else has changed about this device, and that's both good and bad. Let's talk about these ports. You still get a power jack here. You get USB Type-C with Thunderbolt, but it is just dual PCIe lanes. So you can still use an eGP with it, but you won't get as much bandwidth as if you had 4 PCIe lanes, which is ideal. Coming over here, you have USB 3.1 port, you have a headphone jack. Finally, you have this little button here on the side, which is the battery meter, which I think is a really nice addition. Coming over to the right-hand side, and you get a full SD card slot, which is really rare on a 13-inch laptop these days. I'm really glad Dell's sticking with that. And you get another USB 3.1 jack, as well as the Kensington lock. Coming to the main deck, you still have this regular keyboard here. Now, Dell's keyboards I rate as pretty high. I would say maybe B+. It's a really good keyboard, one of my favorites. I just feel they could do a little bit better. I'd like to see them do a little bit more innovation. HP, in my opinion, is crushing it in the keyboards department, and I'd like to see Dell try to catch up there. So when it comes to trackpad though, excellent. We're talking full precision touchpad here, and one of my favorites, very smooth. I've had no issues with it. If you're a big precision touchpad snob like I am, you'll definitely like this one. And finally, you get a fingerprint reader for Windows Hello. So with that web camera, you do not get IR or facial recognition, which is a bit unfortunate. You do get this fingerprint reader. It works. It's you know, not my favorite. I would rather have facial recognition on a device at this cost level, but at the end of the day, a fingerprint reader works quite well. In terms of build quality and materials, you're still getting this nice soft touch paint. It doesn't seem to pick up grease as much as the last version, but that's probably just a coincidence, but you still may have to wipe it down on occasion. Still really nice contrast feel. It's not quite Surface laptop, but it is definitely a nice warm feel versus a cold metal laptop. Speaking of, you still get metal on the outside, which gives you that nice dual toned effect. Now you can get silver, which is standard, or for $50 extra, you can get the new rose gold color option, which I enjoy a lot myself. I'm glad they're giving users a choice, but it is $50 extra for rose gold. All right, let's talk about hardware. You're still going to get a killer wireless Wi-Fi system built into this. I'm actually a big fan of killer. It works very well with my router. If, however, for some reason you don't like it, you can swap it out with an Intel card. That's up to you. I don't think it's worth the effort, but some of you may. When it comes to RAM, Dell tells me this is now a 2133 megahertz machine, so it's faster RAM versus the 1800 megahertz found in the older version. You can get 8 or 16. This one's running 16, which is really what I recommend if you can afford it. For the drives, you will get various drives depending on manufacturers and when Dell's making this. This one in particular is running a Toshiba 512 gigabyte SSD, PCIe of course, and it is a 1400 read and 850 write, which is pretty solid. It's about what I expect out of 500 gigabyte. It's not the fastest, but it's not slow either, and it's very good. All right, let's get to the magic of this laptop right now. This is running the Intel Core i7 8th generation CPU, specifically the 8550U. Now, what makes that unique and special and why we're all excited about it, it's the first quad-core chip for an Ultrabook. Typically, all Ultrabooks run dual-core processors, and it's one of the reasons why they're more limited than full laptops. So this is now quad-core, but there is still a distinction here. The XPS 15 is also quad-core, but that's a different level. That's a 45 watt chip. This is still 15 watt. So you're going to get that performance difference there, but this is closer to that than it was, say, last year. And that's pretty awesome. What does this mean for real life results? Well, when it comes to single core tests, this does perform better than last year's model, so that's good. But it's the multi-core stuff where we see a huge performance jump. In fact, it's around 60% faster, and it's really impressive for such a small chip on board. Now, what this actually means for your life is going to depend on what you do. If you're just running regular Windows apps, well, it's going to feel very zippy, but you're not going to notice a world of difference. Where quad core will matter is for heavy lifting. If you're doing, say, an Excel document and you're just merging a bunch of stuff that takes usually 4 or 5 minutes, well, you'll probably cut that time in half here. If you're doing video or photo editing, it'll also help a lot there as well. So that's where you're going to use quad core. What about video games? Well, the story there is not going to be quite as impressive. This is not a gaming laptop all of a sudden. And the reason for that is a lot of modern video games leverage GPU, not the CPU. That's why all the focus is now on the 1060 and 1070 graphics cards and laptops, because you can still run those with a Core i5 and still do awesome video games. So when it comes to video games like Pinball FX 3, yes, there's a new one, the dual core version performs very similarly to the quad core version. I didn't see a huge difference, and that's because this is still running an Intel HD 620 for graphics, and it doesn't have discrete, so no NVIDIA on board. And as of right now, there's no Iris Pro graphics or Iris Plus, and to be honest, that's not going to make a huge difference anyway. It's nice to have, but it's not going to all of a sudden transform this machine. But here's the upsell. There's no downsides to this processor. You may think all of a sudden battery life is going to take a hit. It's more cores. It's actually quite the opposite. I'm super impressed with how good the battery life is now on the QHD version. I have normally advocated getting the full HD map display if you really want to push 10 hours or more. Well, I'm doing that now with the QHD touchscreen version. I've never done 10 hours with a quad-core Core i7 processor in this high resolution of a display before. For me, this is sort of the ideal laptop now. We're hitting that benchmark. And Dell did a really good job here optimizing things, but you gotta give Intel a lot of credit here for that processor. So you're going to get all around better performance, still not gaming laptop performance, keep in mind, but you're going to get much better battery life. And I can only imagine what the full HD version is going to get. The bottom line here for the XPS 13 and basically any laptop you're looking at, if you can get the Intel 8th generation processor, you should definitely do it. And I really recommend it for the XPS 13. It's transformed this device. Now, I could say that the design itself hasn't changed, and that's true. I wish Dell would upgrade this a little bit more, and we may see that early next year. But then again, it speaks some truth here to how advanced this design was when it came out in 2015 and still feels fresh going to 2018. So kudos to Dell there. I don't have any formal flaws with the XPS 13. Sure, it's a little old, it's getting a little bit boring, but man, it performs and matters where it counts. So there's a quick look at the Dell XPS 13 with the new 8th generation Intel processor. Now, if you want the full review, make sure you go to Windows Central where I go into much more detail. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Take care, everybody.